1991. Following the releases of Barney's Waiting for Santa, Campfire Sing-Along, and Barney Goes to School on VHS, the series continues to build itself up. In fact, a new costume was already being built, one to replace what we'd just been getting accustomed to, and one that would eventually take full hold of the soon-to-be franchise for years to come. Now, where were we? Oh, right, the Backyard Gang, or rather the finale of it? On May 2nd, 1991, the Lions Group struck a deal with PBS to bring Barney and his friends to public television. However, the year still had many plans that didn't account for this to roll out right away. Just a few weeks after, they were scheduled to appear in front of a live audience at the Majestic Theater in Dallas, Texas. The event, simply labeled Barney Live, would be professionally taped and released as the next installment of Barney and the Backyard Gang, titled Barney in Concert. Interestingly, this event would mark a few different firsts, one of which being the body performer. After the filming of the previous few tapes, performer David Voss would leave to join the military, meaning Barney for a brief time would be left without a moving soul. In comes David Joyner, a man who had formerly acted as a live mannequin for different occasions.
I wasn't their first pick. They picked a young lady over me. Apparently, she had to do a live appearance and it didn't work out too well. So I was actually offered the position. But of course, I already knew that I was going to get the position because it was already spoken to me. When we got into the studio to shoot the first video, because when I auditioned, it was only to do 2 home videos. They had already done like 8 videos before I came on board, and it was to do 2 more home videos. When we were in the studio shooting that first video, I said, man, if this thing ever gets on television, it's going to go crazy. Not knowing at the time they were negotiating a deal with PBS to get it on television.
Another first would be the costume itself, and one arguably creating the biggest deviation from its previous iterations to date. Barney bursts from the curtains with an energy we'd not known previously, as well as a new look. This Barney was intuitive in more ways than one. For one, the outer foam of the body is now covered in purple fleece as opposed to spray paint, meaning the cast no longer had to worry about hugging what felt like sandpaper and can be met with something more akin to a soft teddy bear. His feet are entirely new and look a little bit less bony, for lack of a better word, with a much appreciated approach to appearing cute. Barney appears slightly more boxy around the face, with the cheek area being more pronounced than before. Matter of fact, the biggest number of changes lie all in the face. Where before Barney's tongue would be its prominent color with a vision hole in the back for the performer, the tongue is now a black mesh, allowing vision throughout its entirety. It's been discussed that originally Barney could blink through puppeting the eyelids, something that proved more difficult in the 1990 iteration. Now, a mechanism had been put in place similarly to baby dolls you could find on store shelves. Whenever Barney would leap into the air or bend down, the eyelids would follow with gravity, meaning anytime Barney is active, he appears much more lively without the need for reaching up into the eyes with a hand, although that option would still be available. Speaking of keeping the hands free, the costume is now fitted with what would be labeled as the bite bar.
To move Barney's mouth, there's a bar connected to the bottom jaw that was padded with a sponge that I bit down on to grab the sponge. And I would nod my head up and down to move Barney's mouth.
Oh, just to move his head. So he's constantly moving. So
Yeah.
you're like,
Although it appears Barney in this live event speaks by bobbing around with gravity doing its thing, the bite bar can be seen in use at different points in the show during low activity. David Joyner would step into this role with a fierceness like never before. I'll refrain from going too in depth as there's a video covering that will be in the description, but what he brought to the franchise cannot go unnoticed. Not long after this concert, the Lions Group would film what would become the final tape in the Backyard Gang series, this being Rock with Barney. Rock with Barney sees the costume from before returning, and now we get to see that bite bar fully in action.
That's right, Tina. Sounds like you've been learning a lot at school these days.
There are also moments where we're given front row seats to some slight issues that the costume needed tuning up before the eventual jump to television, notably in the eyes. The installed blinking mechanism proved visually stimulating, however, at different points the eyelids would either rest too high, giving Barney a wide stare, or blink too hard, sending the eyelids all the way back almost entirely. Nevertheless, it seemed as though the production crew knew they had a winner on their hands in terms of Barney's current design. This would be the baseline, and with some proper fine-tuning, they'd be on their way. And so they set off, with Rock with Barney being the final release of the Backyard Gang series, Their hands were freed enough of the home video releases for the time being and could now work on what the world would become most familiar with, Barney's tenure on TV, Barney and Friends.
Barney is a dinosaur from our imagination, and when he's tall, he's what we call a dinosaur sensation.
Airing in 1992 would be season 1 of Barney and Friends and Barney's familiar face. Although the previous designs would appear from time to time outside of the show due to the home video series being all that Barney had at the time, the Barney we knew from season 1 would be absolutely everywhere. He'd be on TV, he'd be in TV spots and filming promotionals for PBS.
Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. I'm Barney the Dinosaur. What does your child like most about Barney and Friends? I'm Barney the Dinosaur, and these are some of my friends. We want to be your friends, too. Join Barney and Friends here on Channel 17.
Anytime the Backyard Gang would see re-releases from this point forward, his face would be plastered onto the top left of the box despite him being nowhere in the video itself. All of the artwork that came out of this year would feature Barney drawn in a design reflecting this new costume. And a beautiful decision it turned out to be, as this costume became cemented in the minds of many as a nostalgic centerpiece. The eyelids had been worked on, now resting further down than they had before, unlikely to go off course and keeping Barney focused. David Joyner returns along with Bob West and harbor a working relationship that not only gave Barney the personality we know today, but proved a massive achievement in suit performance and voice work done in tandem. In the beginning, it was a little rough.
It's the gift of love, and you can keep it if you want to, but the more you share love, the more you'll have. Just try it.
However, you can see the kinks working themselves out as time moves along, and it's genuinely somewhat inspiring.
Okay, a birthday party for me? Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy.
Barney and Friends would run for about 30 episodes, go through a very brief cancellation phase before having itself picked up again for a second season after immediate outcry from parents at home. Barney was on a roll, and it was clear that this Barney would not be going anywhere. For ease of reference, we'll call him Star Barney. After the first season would be a 40-minute long home video special titled Barney's Magical Musical Adventure.
Wherever I go, I always know my home is a castle to me.
Following this would be the start of the second season, and lo and behold,
Barney comes to play with us whenever we may need him. Barney can be your friend too if you just make believe him.
Barney and Friends Season 2 kicked off in 1993, and by this time, the costume that originally appeared at the tail end of Barney and the Backyard Gang had been around as the main face of the franchise for 2 years. Now, while this may not sound like the longest time, keep in mind I said it was the main face of the franchise. Although the Irene Corey production house would create multiple versions of this costume to replicate its look and be used for different occasions, anytime you'd see Barney on camera for an official outing, it would be Star Barney. His design so cemented that the studio Barney plush for this series would see a slight revamp to better accentuate the costume's features in comparison to what we'd seen in season 1. This is the exact same costume from its first appearance in 1991. This is very evident from a variety of visual and anecdotal aspects. For one, it was confirmed many years later from those who worked on the production at different points that Barney costumes would often need to be repaired as David Joyner's performance proved so energetic that at times fixing it up was essentially mandatory.
Because the original Barney, the guy that wore it, was so rough in it that he kept breaking it. It would tear apart.
Another place we can look is at photos taken around this time. In certain high-quality images, especially those featured in magazines, you can actually see what appears to be sweat buildup in the stomach and arm area of Star Barney. Season 2 of Barney and Friends, however, would feature the best notable instances of this wear and tear. Across the series, you can see the fleece of the costume balling up more than usual. Although the fleece has always appeared very fuzzy in this iteration over the years, it becomes much more apparent near the end of the season, appearing almost distracting. The eyelids also seem to have some slight trouble carrying out their blinking function, with the color of the eyelids coming off somewhat more faded than before. It also needs to be stated that just like the previous year, Star Barney would be everywhere.
Friend here is going to tell you what's in store for today. Come on over here, Barney.
Oh, hi, everybody. Hi, Patrice.
Good morning. How you doing, Barney?
Oh, I'm great. I'm so glad to see you. Oh, we've got a lot of fun planned for today. We're going to see some of my favorite Barney and Friends shows. Plus, we're going to see the world premiere of Barney in concert. Oh, boy.
At live events,
We're going to have lots of fun because we're going to sing some of our favorite songs. Now, is everyone ready to sing?
at award shows,
Well, Barney, I think we better get down to business and present the award for Outstanding Animated Program.
Oh, that sounds super duper!
Gee, Barney, I wish you'd cheer up a little bit.
at Bill Clinton's inauguration, promotionals, and even the morning news.
Hi, Barney. How are you?
I'm fine. Boy, I'm so happy
You know
to
what?
be here, huh?
Be responsible. And in fact, since the election,
Shucks, I don't know much about that sort of thing.
But you do know how to say, now it's time for the weather with Willard, don't you?
Why, I think so. Now it's time for the weather with Willard. Hi, Willard.
Star Barney was all over the place for what is seen as Barney's biggest heights. At that point, at least. Star Barney was the nostalgic link for a lot of people, a costume design that just screams the 90s, a time long gone, but a time remembered nonetheless. David Joyner and Bob West honed their skills together and created a Barney that the world remembers most today. They used this design until they couldn't anymore, and the following year of 1994, at least in terms of being the official face, he would be retired. Not forgotten, but retired, for a new design that would come in for one of the biggest years in the franchise's history. Alicia, Andrew, Austin, Autistic Disney, Brandon, Chaco, Emilia, Grim, Helen, Ian, Junior the Hedgehog, Matthew, The Real Heebleman.